Hello and welcome to today's video lesson. I am Richie Simon, Assistant Professor from BSS College, and today we are going to learn about NGOs, specifically the concept, characteristics, nature and forms. After going through this video lesson, you will come to know about what NGOs are. You will come to know about the environment of an NGO, the nature or characteristics of NGOs, the scope of NGOs and the forms or types of NGOs. So what is an NGO? An NGO, abbreviated for non-governmental organization, is a non-profit organization which may be funded by government, foundations, businesses or private persons. NGOs are varied groups of organizations that are engaged in a variety of activities. And when we are calling it as a non-governmental organization, mind it that after registration, an NGO becomes a legal entity. That means an NGO can be sued and it can sue anybody in the court. It's a legal entity. Let's move on with the NGO environment and the three aspects of NGOs. So here on the screen you can see we have the external environment, which means those factors which are outside the NGO and they can affect the working of the NGO somehow. That means indirectly they are going to affect the functioning of any NGO. The task environment, that includes the factor which are directly going to affect the ability of NGO to reach its set goals. The task environment is about where the organization is really functional and what are the factors affecting that concerned place. Then we have the internal environment. Internal environment is going to comprise of those factors that are within the NGO, that are internal to the NGO and can affect the functioning of the concerned organization. If we try to understand it through the medium of a diagram here on the screen, you can see the external environment, that is this outer circle. The task environment, that is the inward circle, and the most internal circle is going to comprise of your internal environment. So what are the key features of your external environment? We are having the technological factors that might affect the functioning of the organization. For instance, an organization is having a website. The way it is communicating with the external masses, the way it is presenting its achievements, the way it is being portrayed in the media, all of this becomes a part of the technological factors. The socio-cultural factors, external to the organization, not in the control of the organization, can affect the functioning. For instance, you cannot make the organization function against the cultural norms of a place. Like in an Islamic country, you cannot propagate to just remove the parda system. That is something which is against the accepted cultural norms and sometimes even the rules. The legal or the political framework, which is again a part of the external framework, which comprises of the laws governing a concerned organization. So though your organization might not be directly involved into it, but then under whatever legislations your NGO is registered, either as a trust or a society or as a company, the legislative part, the provisions which are applicable on your organization will definitely affect the functioning of the concerned NGO. The economic factors. How much contribution can your organization make for the beneficiaries? What is the economic condition of the NGO to pay to the employees that are working in the NGO? The economic framework at the macro level, what is the per capita income of a country, for instance? The economic framework is not just functional at your local level, but also at the macro level. And of course, the international framework which is there. For instance, your organization has to follow certain provisions, say for instance the human rights. The organization cannot function against what the UN framework of human rights is suggesting. These type of factors are the external environment to any organization and can affect its functioning indirectly. Moving on to the inner circle, that is your task environment. We have 4 major groups coming in here as the funding agency. So your funding agency, the donor agencies from which you are getting the funds, is definitely going to affect your organization's functioning. So how much are they ready to invest in your work is going to decide the limits of your work. It's going to define the boundaries. It's going to set up certain limitations when you work in the field. The beneficiaries, how much accepting are they? How much do they know about your organization? Are they ready to take the benefits offered by your organization? The competitors. So what are the other NGOs or the other units working for the development, working for the benefit of your clients? And of course, the public pressure groups present, like the unions, for instance, might be affecting the working of your NGO. Now, moving on to the internal environment. The internal environment is not on the screen, but then it is going to comprise of the things like the rules and regulations. It's going to comprise of the values, the philosophy. It's going to comprise of things like the mission, the vision, the objectives, the policies that are a key feature of the concerned organization. So with what philosophy is the organization? What are the rules and regulations to be followed? What is the code of conduct? What are the policies that are inherent to the concerned organization? All this is going to comprise your internal environment. It's going to decide the climate of the organization. It's going to define the culture of the organization. So how do people really perceive your organization who are working for you? So that's the internal environment. Now let's take a look at the nature or characteristics of NGOs. The first point, it's a non-profit making, a voluntary, service or development oriented organization. When we are talking about NGO, it is not for profit. It is a non-profit making. So the intention with which you are doing your activities, it is not for profit. It is for the expansion of the services. It is something which is voluntary. People have decided to work for a particular cause and then they get registered as an NGO. It is going to be service oriented, it's going to be development oriented, and that is going to be the primary focus of any NGO. They believe in certain basic social principles which are very much related to the philosophy of social work itself, which means social justice and human rights. Every NGO is going to have certain specific objectives and aims for which it works. That is what I also shared in the internal environment. There will be some vision, there will be some mission, there will be some objectives towards which the organization is functional. And with this, they structure the activities towards the development. So what am I really trying to attain? Towards that, I will be framing my activities. These organizations are independent and democratic in nature. So it's the people's will. They unite and then they work for a concerned cause. It is not affiliated to any political party, and that is what is giving it the essence of non-governmental. It works independent of any external control, but then definitely it is under the legal provisions. So you cannot really violate the legal framework. It is independent of any external control, but under the legislation itself. And it assists in the empowerment of people. So these are some of the key features, the nature of NGO. Let's proceed forward with the scope of NGOs. Here on the slide, you can see a lot of areas into which NGO functions. Let me tell you that this again is not an all-inclusive list, but then some prominent areas into which NGOs can function. For instance, child rights, poverty, social injustice, environment conservation, human rights, care for the elderly people, women empowerment. Not just for humans, it also goes in the realms of wildlife conservation, animal rights, sanitation and hygiene, humanitarian relief, health and nutrition, literacy, education, refugee crisis, disease control, and a lot of other areas. This list is not all inclusive, but then some prominent places where you find NGOs to be functional is there on the slide. So if there are so many areas into which NGOs can function, what are the forms, what are the types? Again, you can find that different people have tried to categorize NGOs using different criterias, and different lists are available. The first criteria that we are trying to understand is given by Mostashari in 2005. Accordingly, there are two types of NGOs. The first is the operational NGO and the second is the advocacy NGO. Advocacy NGOs are those that are functional for the rights of people. That means we are talking about the deprived groups, we are talking about the vulnerable groups who are not otherwise heard. So these NGOs are functional for the advocacy purpose. Apart from that, if the organization is functional for any other reason, that is an operational NGO. So it is function for the purpose of literacy, it is function for the purpose of health or hygiene or any other area into which the NGO is functional, that would be an operational NGO. There is another classification which is given by Cousins in 1991. Accordingly, there are 4 types of NGOs, the first being the charitable NGO. Now, charitable NGO, as the term suggests, would be those that are practicing charity. Okay, so they are serving the people, they are providing them with money or maybe some material which the beneficiaries really require. So the key idea is charity. They are the charitable organizations. Normally, the trusts come in the charitable NGOs. We have the service-oriented NGOs who are providing services to the beneficiaries. Now, when I'm calling anything as a service, that means it is non-material. Okay, so you cannot touch it. It is something which is intangible. That is a service. Like education is a service. Like any health services that you're providing, you're conducting a camp, that's a service. Any training that you're providing, that is a service. The participatory NGOs would be the ones which are working at the grassroots level. So they are participating with the people of the community. So they're not giving any directions, but then they are there for the people, and these people, the composition of the NGO has actually emerged from the grassroots level. That is a participatory NGO. So it works with the people, not for the people, but then with the people. The last one here is the empowering NGO. Those that are functional for the purpose of empowerment of the beneficiaries. I'm not saying empowerment of the women, but then empowerment of the beneficiaries. Any vulnerable group can be taken in for empowerment purposes. Again, when we talk about empowerment, it's not just the economic empowerment which should come to your mind. So the broader domains of empowerment are going to be 3. One is your social empowerment. Second is your economic empowerment. And the third is your political empowerment. So you are trying to empower somebody who is not allowed to take decisions, somebody who is dependent over others. That person is requiring empowerment. So economic empowerment is where we are looking for the financial independence of the person. What about the social empowerment or the political empowerment? When we talk about social empowerment, it's about the kind of status a person is having in the society. So how respectable are you in the society? How do others in the society treat you? Do they listen to what you have to say? That all is a part of the social empowerment. The third dimension to it is the political empowerment. Now, political empowerment is not to do with any political party, but this is to do with the decision making. Are you allowed to take decisions on your own? Are your clients allowed to take decision on their own? That is the political empowerment. So these three realms of empowerment, they are not separate. You cannot go for economic empowerment and leave social and political empowerment, or you cannot go for political empowerment and leave social and economic empowerment. It's going to go together. So once you are you're working for economic empowerment, automatically what will come in is the social empowerment and the political empowerment. So if your agency is really working in this direction, that is an empowering NGO. There's another classification given by Vakil in the year 1997, and this is on the basis of the level of operation. So NGOs can be the local NGOs. Local NGOs means they are functional in a concerned place only. So their area of working is very limited. That is a local NGO. Moreover, the local NGOs actually work for a local cause, a local issue that is picked up by the local NGOs. Then we have the regional NGOs. The regional NGOs will be working for a concerned region. That means the area of work or the span of work is increased. The geographical area into which a regional NGO will be working is going to be broader than a local NGO. Then we have the national NGO, and as the term suggests, national NGOs are going to be working across the nation. So across a country, an NGO is working. That's going to be a national NGO. And something which is breaking this boundary of the nation, that is going to be your international NGO. For example, a local NGO can be anything which is functional for a particular cause at a local area. Like for Bhopal, we have Sambhavna Trust as one such organization, which is a local NGO working for the victims of Bhopal gas tragedy. That is a local NGO. The cause is also local, the issue is also local, and its functioning is also local. Moving to a regional NGO, for example, MPSSS is a regional NGO. Why is it a regional NGO? Because it is working for a concerned state. Its functioning is across the entire state of Madhya Pradesh. We have the national NGOs, like Childline is a national NGO because it is working across states and the functioning remains the same. That's a national NGO. And any UN organization, if you see, that's going to be an international NGO. For example, UNICEF. UNICEF is an international NGO. It is working across nations, so not limited to a concerned country. So these are the forms or types of NGOs. In today's lesson, we have seen the basic concept of NGO. We have tried to cover up the characteristics or nature of NGO. We have tried to see the forms of NGO, the scope of NGO, and of course, the environment of NGO at large. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have learned and you enjoyed the same.